Hey there, math fans. Test 13, Lesson 5. Get your swords ready and let's go. Today we're going to review how to identify triangles by angles and how to find the difference between negative numbers. So we'll start by talking about how to identify triangles. So when we're doing this, the first thing you need to know is that the angles of any triangle will always add up to 180 degrees. So this is an equilateral triangle, which means that each angle will always be the same. In this case, they have to be 60, 60, and 60 because 60 plus 60 plus 60 equals 180. The three angles of a triangle always equal 180 degrees. Now, what that means for an equilateral triangle is that because equilateral triangles have equal angles and sides, an equilateral triangle will always have three angles of 60 degrees each. It can't be any different. Otherwise, they wouldn't be equal or they wouldn't add up to 180. So if someone says to you, I have a triangle, and all three angles are 60 degrees, you know it's equilateral. Same thing if I said to you, I have an equilateral triangle, what are the angles? You would automatically know that they're 60 degrees. So knowing that all triangles have angles that add up to 180 degrees, here we have a right scalene triangle. So all the angles and sides are going to be different lengths or measurements. We have a square here that indicates a right angle of 90 degrees, and this angle is 35 degrees. What will the other angle equal? So as you see, I just did some math. I did 180 because all three angles add up to 180, and I took away the 90. So that gave me 90, and then I took away the 35, and that gave me 55. My missing angle is 55 degrees. One special case with triangles is when you have a right isosceles triangle, so that's one where two of the sides and angles are the same, and one side and angle is different. That one you don't even need to measure, because if this is 90 degrees, the other two have to add up to 90 degrees, and 90 divided by 2 is 45. So anytime you have a right isosceles triangle, not scalene, but a right isosceles triangle, you're going to have angles that measure 90 degrees, 45 degrees, and 45 degrees. So here we have another example of an isosceles triangle. So you can see that these two sides are both labeled D, so they're going to be the same length. This side is labeled B, it will be different. These two angles are 72 degrees, they're the same, and this guy's 36, it'll be different. So that checks out for an isosceles triangle, but we still need to make sure these angles add up to 180 degrees. If they don't, it's not a triangle, it's impossible. So it would mean that we made a mistake with our measurements. So let's check. 72 plus 72 is going to give me 144. And when I add in 36, I'm going to get 180. So it's a triangle. Now when you're looking at a scalene triangle, all the angles and sides will be different, but the angles still have to add up to 180 degrees. So here, this angle is 45 degrees, this one is 80, this one is 55. They're all different, and all these sides would be different lengths as well. But if I add those guys up, 55 and 45, I don't really need to write this down because I know 50 and 40 is 90, and then it's going to be another 10, so that's 100. And then add in 80, 100 plus 80, of course, will be 180 degrees. So it's all good. That's basically what you need to know about triangles. The angles will always add up to 180 degrees, and if you know that, it makes identifying the type of triangle much easier. Let's move on and talk about how to find the difference between negative numbers. So this first question asks me, what is the difference between negative 6 and 6? So I'm going to mark those guys on the number line. So here's negative 6 and here's 6. And the difference, of course, means the distance between them. So all I really have to do is count the distance between them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The difference between negative 6 and 6 is 12. You can also find that distance if you don't want to draw a number line. What you can do is just add up the distance to 0. So from 0 to positive 6 is 6. From 0 to negative 6 is 6. There's 12 in between them. Let's try another example. What is the difference between negative 10 and negative 7? So I'm going to mark the difference here, negative 10 and negative 7. And then I can count the difference between them. 1, 2, 3. The difference is 3. Now the trick I showed you a minute ago about finding the difference between 0 won't work for this one because they're both on the same side. This one is more straight subtraction. You know that 10 minus 7 is 3. So the difference between 10 and 7 is going to be the same as the difference between negative 10 and negative 7. You don't have to put a negative in there because we're not really talking about which direction to go. We just want to know how many spaces are between them. And there are 3 spaces between them. So here's one for you to try on your own. What is the difference between negative 1 and 5? So pause the video here and figure out the answer, and when you come back, I will share it with you. So I've marked negative 1 and 5 on the number line, and if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces between them, and this time the little trick does work. 5 spaces between 0 and 5, 1 space between negative 1 and 0. So that trick works if you're dealing with numbers where one is a negative and one's a positive, but not if they're both on the same side of 0. Then it's just straight subtraction. So hopefully that wasn't too complicated. And here we have that exact same question put into a word problem. If it's minus 21 degrees Celsius outside and we expect the temperature to rise 15 degrees this morning, what will the temperature be at lunchtime? Basically, I'm asking you what's the difference between minus 21 and 15. And number 2, for each of these letters, what kind of triangles would have the following angles? A, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, B, 90 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, and C, 60 degrees, 50 degrees, and 70 degrees. Those are your review questions for today, so get those done, and we're finished. I'll see you tomorrow.